Parshas Boy. Thank you so much. The Parasha of Yitzias Mitzrayim. The Sfasema says that Yitzias Mitzrayim is not just Yitzias Mitzrayim. Everyone is in Mitzrayim. We all have situations in our life that we feel like we are bottled in. Feels like we're locked in. Feels like that there are borders and gates around us. And to be zoicha to an internal kind of a freedom, you need a Yitzias Mitzrayim. And Parshas Boy, these Parshias is Mesugol that not only did Klal Yisrael go out of Mitzrayim, that we come out of our personal Mitzrayim. There were those Rebbes and some Chasidisim that actually conducted a Seder Friday night Parshas Boy. As a matter of fact, there was even tshuvas to make sure to do certain things so you're not over Baal Taisif. No one should think that there's a real thing. And of course, your child, or Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, your child will come home with the picture of Pari running in his pajamas. And every coloring book has different pajamas of Pari. Some have little choo-choo trains, some have little stars and things. We're all looking forward to it. I know a Rabbi that had all his kids come in pajamas, like dress up like Pari this week. So it's interesting. So this parasha becomes a pivotal parasha in terms of our own internal struggles. It says, "Vayakam Pari got up and he came running in his pajamas." It really doesn't say anywhere that he came running in his pajamas. It just says he came running in the middle of the night. Knowing Pari probably slept in his long robe and his crown anyway. His teddy bear probably had a little crown on it too. So it says, "Vayakam Pari got up, made mitasai." Rashi says, where did he get up from? He got up from his bed. And what's the chiddush? Why does Rashi say mitasai? He got up from his bed. For some, waking up early from their bed is a big chiddush, but why is Rashi saying this? So the Imrei Emes points out is that here's Para. You're supposed to be the king of your people. You're supposed to be the king. You're supposed to love your people. You're supposed to be committed to your people. You're supposed to be the person that has all the resources in the world to take care of your people. And your whole country is burning and dying, and then it's time for him, it's bedtime, and he goes to sleep. A guy gets a shlufen, until suddenly he's turning from one side of the pillow to the other as he begins series B of his night's sleep. And he says, wait a second. It occurs to him, I'm also a bchar. And he goes, yikes. And he gets out of bed. But until then, until he read the situation as a personal threat, the fact that people are dying all around, so big deal. The B'chayrim themselves had a revolution against Pari. So the Imrei Emes says that this is the contrast between Moshe and Pari. Moshe, who gets into trouble to save Klal Yisrael, and it says, Mecheni no misifrecha, but I will not sleep at night if Klal Yisrael is wiped out. And Pari says, as long as it doesn't affect me, it's fine. I heard once from the one of the sons of the Kapishn Rebbe, the Kapishn Rebbe during the war, he literally had a minig. This was his key to survival, he felt. He didn't go to sleep with any money. He gave it all out. He said, how could, in a time like this, every penny can be a matter of life and death. He said, in a time like this, you have to do extreme measures. He risked his life, kama upon him for many people. But even here in America, so if somebody came over to him and said he's having an operation, he used to fast for people. So he said, this person once came, he said, the Rebbe, tomorrow I'm having an operation. He said, it's a gallbladder operation, but there may be complications, and I'm all worried, and this and yes. The Rebbe said, don't worry. And it turned out the next day, he went to the surgeon, and the surgeon said, you have a little cold, so forget the operation. So the Kapishn Rebbe's son is walking, and he sees this guy in the pizza shop sitting there and eating away. He says, my father's fasting now, because you're in the surgeon's knife. What are you doing in the pizza shop? He said, we called off the operation. Why don't you tell him? He's fasting for you. The Schachter Rebbe's Bracha when somebody came over to him and said he had a bad dream, or he was frightened of something, he would say, dreams are nothing, and then he would fast for that person. So they told him, don't tell the Rebbe he was sick, you can't fast that much. So that's the contrast here between Paroi and what we consider Gedolim. So if you look in the very first Medrash in this week's Parasha, Medrash Rabbah, look it up later. Very interesting story the Medrash tells us. How many people here ever heard of Avnimus Hagardi, Avnimus the Weaver? Anyone here ever heard of Avnimus the Weaver? Didn't think so. The Medrash says in Parashas Talvis that Avnimus the Weaver and Bilam were the greatest philosophers in their time. I'm not 100% sure what philosophy is anyway, but they were the greatest philosophers, greatest thinkers in their time. I guess when you're weaving a lot, you have a lot of time to think. That's the thing. As I've told you the story many times, this guy that bought a racehorse And he's petrified. He says, what's going to be with this racehorse? His wife says, you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're scared someone's going to steal it. So get someone to watch it. And he says, who should I get to watch it? If I get someone that's too smart, he'll steal the horse for himself. And if I get someone that doesn't have any brains, enough of them will steal it, and he won't. So they're looking around for just the right person. Not too smart, not too foolish. The Gemara says, Torah. Sometimes they're reading a letter. So they found this person. They said he's a philosopher. He's up the whole night. He philosophizes. He thinks. He says he won't fall asleep on you, and he's just the right, not the brightest bulb in the box, and just. So he hires him. He says, make sure you don't fall asleep. You got to watch my horse. Even though he had barbed wire and everything around, he says, don't worry, I don't sleep. I have too many philosophical difficulties. I can't sleep. He says, what are your philosophical difficulties? He's worried. Again, if the guy's too smart, he says, I said, there's a pair of socks, right? He says, yeah. There's a hole in the socks, right? Right. Where your foot goes in and out of? Right. Some people have several holes, but I'm talking about an average pair of socks. There's one hole. He says, so what happens to the material of that hole? He says, you're my guy, You keep thinking about that, you keep watching the horse here. And an hour later he comes back to him, he wants to make sure he's still up. He says, you're okay? He says, you're sleeping? I sleep, too many philosophical problems. So there's a bagel, he says, right. How does the hole, this dough, how is there a hole there? Like, how does that happen? Where did the dough disappear to? You keep thinking. Comes back after an hour, he says, you're up? Yeah, too many problems. So what's your problem? He says, there's a building and there's a window. What happens to the bricks by the window? How did that disappear? I don't know. And now he's relaxed. He comes back in the morning. He says, he's still up. I didn't sleep a wink. I don't sleep. So what's troubling you now? I said, look. He says, there's barbed wire and there's fences all around. He says, where did the horse disappear to? He says, how did this happen? How did it go? So anyway, this is a philosopher, the weaver. He's a big chacham. But listen, the Medrash says he was one of the greatest philosophers of the time. There's a Medrash in Rus that says he was a chaver of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi went to Menachem Abalim. So anyway, Avnimus, he comes to the Chachamim. It must have been on a rough day, and he had a very important philosophical question. One of those days you have to be matur and aguna, or you have like all these. He wants to know, how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the world? And they're like going, oh no, Beryl Weiner says a story about one of the great philosophers before on his deathbed. So all his talmidim are standing around. They want to get the last word of chachma from him, and they say to him, I heard a story from him. He said, tell us one last before you leave this world, great teacher. So he says, the world is like a river. Because, hey, the world's like a river here. It's bad, the world's like a river here. Till outside, it goes all around. It's press releases. They said the world is like a river. It goes finally all the way at the end of the line, 2 blocks down, says, what does that mean, the world is like a river? I don't know, what does it mean? They go back. Finally, he's on his deathbed. They lean over to him and they say, what does it mean the world is like a river? And he goes, right, the world's not like a river, and he dies, That's the end of that. All right, so Avnimus, the philosopher, he wants to know how the world is created. So the Chachamim tell him, this is the beginning Medrash this week, they tell him, we don't answer you, they didn't want to answer him. They said, why don't you go to Yosef HaBinah, Yosef the builder, he'll tell you how the world is created. So to go to Yosef HaBinah is standing on some type of a scaffold, he's in the middle of a building. And now the Midrashim say, why did they send him to Yosef HaBinah? They said Yosef HaBinah was a simple builder. They said if they're going to get into some theological or philosophical debate with him, so he's going to claim he won. With debates, it can go anyway, and it's usually the better debater. They don't want to get involved. They said they'll send him to this Abba Yosef, the builder, as a Mamanavshach. If he gets it, if he answers him to his satisfaction, then fine. If not, they're going to say, well, he's just a builder. That's an eitzah that's sometimes used. Again, as I've told you many times, they'll say this, right, the mayor of the town, he came with Galach, and he said that the Jews have to challenge him in a debate, and the first one who loses the debate, if the Jews lose the debate, they're going to be expelled from the country, and they didn't know what to do. So the water carrier, the town shamus, he said, send me. So you have nothing to lose. As if I lose, you're going to say you lost against the water carrier, that doesn't count. And if I win, so I win. You're going to lose. So he comes, he's all taken aback. You're the one that sent the debate, okay? So they tell him the ground rules, and they say, listen, the first person that says I don't know to an answer, he lost the debate. So they give him, they said, you have the first serve. He wins the coin toss. You have the first serve. You ask him a question. So he thinks for a minute, and our water carrier says, what is the translation of the words Eini Yodea? He says, I don't know. That's it. He says, I don't know. He lost the debate. That's it. I won. Everyone's cheering. And now, he said, that's the ground rules. So they go over to this water carrier, and they say to him, they didn't think he was so smart to come up like this. Who gave you this gewaldige idea? He says, I opened the Art Scroll Chumash. I was looking for a hard word. When it came to Ein Yedei, I said, if even the art scroll doesn't know what it is, so I figured he for sure wouldn't know what it is, right? So I figured it was a good word to start with. Okay, so they sent him to Rabbi Yosef, and they said, so he comes to this Rabbi Yosef, and this Rabbi Yosef is this is the Medrash says he's standing on a scaffold, he's trying to screw in get the brick in over there, and this guy, philosopher, is yelling down from on bottom, and he says, how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the world? So he answers, Schir Yoimani. He says, I can't answer you, I work for a living. Like, I don't have time to how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. I got to get this brick in over here. He says, I have no right to talk to you. He says, if you want, you can talk to me while I'm working. So he says, how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the world? So this Rabbi Yosef answers him. He says, how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the world? Not Allah HaKadosh Baruch Hu afar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu took dust. Mitachas kisei hakavod. V'zorak al hamayim Hashem, and spritzed it on the water, sprayed it on the water. The nasa oretz, and the land became l'tzroiris ketanim, a little pebbles. Shoyu ba'afar nasu hora mugvois. They became huge, big mountains. Now the Mefarshei HaMedrash question, and what's the shaila? How that's how Hashem created the world? I mean, we know that the basic concept of Masa Bereshis is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created what's called a yesh me'ayin, something out of nothing. There is no scientist in the world. There is no government agency in the world. There is no one can create something out of nothing. The most sophisticated science, the most sophisticated satellite and missile and everything else is existing laws of nature. It's just that it was discovered. No one can create a yesh me'ayin. No one can make this watch for $1 trillion, for more money than there is in the American deficit. No one can create this watch out of nothing. Nothing created. You can't. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a yesh me'ayin. And for that matter, only HaKadosh Baruch Hu can make an ayin me'yesh. You can't take this watch and make it non-existent. You can crack it into 10 trillion pieces and spread it over the world. You can cook it and change it into a different form of matter, into gas, but you can't make it non-existent. Okay? I once said this by Yashir, and I said it's impossible to take something and make it really disappear, and someone said, money in my house, when my wife gets a hold of it. Does happen. All right. They say the story, I hope no one gets this wrong. Say the story that this man walks into one of the big banks in Borough Park and he sees the men on one side, one line, the ladies on the other line. And he goes over to the branch manager and says, chutzpah, what do you think this is, Eretz Yisrael? What do you think it's a bus? The ladies in the back, men in the front. What do we call them? Branch manager says, what do you want from me? He says, what do you mean men on one line, ladies on the other line? You can't have this over here. He says, there's no segregation of men and ladies. Look, ladies on one line, men on the other line. He says, don't you see what's happening over here? That line is for deposits. This line is for withdrawals. That's all. He said, that's why the men are on one line, the ladies are on a different line. It's nothing to do with, okay. So Be'emes it says, Bereshis bara Lakim. So the Midrashim tell us that everything was created with the word Bereshis. All of matter was created with the word Bereshis. And all neshamas were created with the word Bereshis. So basically, whatever we're doing with nature, building and taking apart, is like when you were a little kid and you went downstairs to the basement and your mother opened up a tub of Lincoln blocks or clicks or Lego, depending on your age, whatever it was, and that's it. And you build and you take apart, and you build and you take apart, and the time came, everything had to be cleaned up and went back into the container. The Kadosh Baruch Hu created every little aspect of matter that exists. And the truth is that it's explained, if you look in the Derech Hashem and other Svarim, that everything that exists is because the Kadosh Baruch Hu gives it a power to exist. Whether it's the vastness of space or the tiny little orbiting atoms, which is as mind-boggling, as small as this is, and as that, they say that the comparison from, if you take these tiny little atoms and the smallest little particles or molecules, that protons and whatever it is that are known to man, the distance from one to another is like the distance from the furthest planet. If you comparatively put it together, it's both in the smallness and in the largeness, it's beyond our imagination. So the Derech Hashem explains that everything has an neshama. There are 4 basic inyanim of matter. Doimim, chai, tzomeach, medaber. Doimim is vayidai maharan, quiet. This table is a doimim. There's tzomeach, which is plant life. There's chai, animal life, and a medaber. And everything has an neshama. Even a doimim has a neshama. This was something that was laughed at when there's, when you see these zayers that say even a table has a neshama. But the emes is, we know now that all forms of matter, for it to exist, is alive. That there are all sorts of atoms and worlds that are spinning around each other. Just we never had the ability of looking in that deep. The Nefesh HaChayim B'Emes explains it like this. He says, we're in a neshama, okay, and there's a guf. In a higher realm, which is more spiritual, you're in the neshama that is spiritual down here, in a higher realm becomes guf. And there's a neshama for that guf. And in a higher realm, that neshama becomes guf. Because the more spiritual it becomes, the more things that we consider spiritual are physical. And it keeps going that way. In the higher realm, what is neshama to the lower world is guf. And that keeps going until Kutcha Barichu himself, who is the neshama of everything. And in other words, the Rabbi Shalom gives life to everything. And the emphasis, those are the three makkos. Dam, the first three makkos, the Tzach Hadash B'chav, Dam Tzfardei Akinim, was to let Pari know God created the world. And the middle makkos, right, the Tzach Hadash, Oroiv, Dever, and Shchin, because you can create the world. I mean, the guy built the Arizona Bridge. It doesn't mean he has a say now on the toll hike that's up or now. He built it. Goodbye. We don't need you anymore. So the three middle makkos teach us God is running the world. The last four makkos, Ba'achav, which is in this week's Parasha, which is Arba, and followed by the Ba'achav, Arba, Choshech, and B'chayres. I'm not good with numbers, sorry. I guess the last three. So these makkos, or Barid, from Barid and on, show us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu not only created the world, not only did HaKadosh Baruch Hu does he control the world, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the world. That just like without an neshama we are nothing, if I had a microscope that could look deep in, I would not only see molecules and protons and all those things that the scientists talk about, but if I look deeper I will see the Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is what makes everything exist. Which is why you can't take something and make it disappear, because it's Kadosh Baruch Hu himself, anything that exists. Kadosh Baruch Hu allowed us to re-switch things so we can change its form. You can change one matter to the other. You can turn liquid into solid, solid into gas, and so on and so on. You could take the World Trade Center and explode it into trillions and trillions of pieces and scatter it over the 7 seas. But it all still exists, because there's nothing new that kain chadash tachas hashamesh from Parashas Bar Elikim, and nothing will disappear. What changes is just the mitzias of how things work. Furthermore, it's brought down that there's a certain amount of money both in the world and in a person's life. It says, Tinik ba v'kicker b'yadai. A baby is born, and there's a kicker in his hands. We've mentioned many times the last couple of weeks, somebody once came to the Nidver Rebbe, he cried, he said, Rebbe, 11 kids, I have no parnasa, help me, parnasa. Rebbe said, I'll give you a bracha this year, should be zaycha, your wife should give birth to another Ben Zachar. Rebbe, not what I asked for. I said, Rebbe, why did you give him another kid? He said, he has no parnasa. He said, but that kid has the key to his parnasa. Every child comes with parnasa. Some children come with parnasa for the whole family. So every person is born with a certain amount of money in your bag. Just like when your mother sends you to school and you have a snack bag. When your neshama comes down, you come down. Tinik ba v'kicker b'yadi. The piece of bread is in your hands. Kolm is a noisaf kitzuvulay min Rosh Hashanah l'Rosh Hashanah. So there's a taich. Kolm is a noisaf. Because Baruch Hu takes all of the mezainas, all of the food that has been allotted to you in your lifetime, and the Rabbi Shalom determines how much you're going to get on Rosh Hashanah for that year, which is why you have to proportion it. As Rashi explains, if I don't have enough money to make ends meet, and I decide I must have a jacuzzi or I must have a Ferrari, and all of a sudden I have no money for milk, it's because the Baruch Hu gave you a certain amount of money. Same is true, it's brought down in the Svarim HaKadoshim that a person has a certain amount of pleasure in this world. Every drop of hana, as well as a certain amount of tsar. There's only a certain amount of pain and tsar, afterwards there's no more tsar. There's only a certain amount of pleasure that we have in this world. And that pleasure has to come, by hook or by crook. Which is why if a person doesn't keep his eyes b'kedusha, he looks at whatever he wants to look at, and he engages in certain acts, so at the end, the irony, the pain is going to be is, he uses it up. And as a result, he doesn't have it later when there's an opportunity to have it beheter. And he sees afterwards, if I only would have waited, I would have had this pleasure anyway. That's pshat ein chayt nisker. No one gains by a chayt. What any pleasure a person could possibly have, like any avera you would have, if that pleasure isn't meant for you. So why are you using it up in chayt? Chavetz Chaim says the same thing about a ganef. He says a ganef that, pulls off a heist and he's matzliach. He has $10 billion in his bag until he's caught. He says, so was Bashert, he should make the money. He says, the greatest frustration is going to be, he's going to see later, the only reason the Geneva worked is because it was Bashert, he should make the money. It was tested. He says, I could have had this money beheter. Now I have to pay kefil dollars for it. And the same is true for Taiva, the same is true for everything in this world. There's a certain amount. There's a Gabba of Shlomka Zavilla once came to him and said, I just lost my gold watch, I had it so many. He says, what did you get this week? So he said, we got new drapes in my house, and I loved it. It was so beautiful. He says, there's a certain amount of hana. You indulged in your grapes, in your drapes, sometimes grapes, but as a result, you lost your watch. There's a certain balance. You ever notice that dents always happen to brand new cars? I can't buy a brand new car. I can't believe someone scratched it. There's too much hana in the brand new car. There has to be a balance. There's a certain amount of hana in this world. Okay? So now, there's no yesh mi'ayin. I'm a little anical, Simchas Torah. So, I gave him, what are they called? Twinkies? Those little, I forgot what they're called. They have a bunch of little colored candies in them.
Winkies.
Yeah, Winkies. I'm sorry. I'm from the old time. Anyway.
I have one.
You have one? Oh, okay. Anyway, so I gave it, so my friend comes by. He's like into magic tricks. So he takes it from my anical. When I see it disappears. Where is it? It comes out of his ear. He gives it to him, right? So the next day he comes over to me and wants another one. I said, I don't have. He said, I should go to him. He knows that I make it come out of his ear. He said, go. He's crying. There he is. He got him. No, you don't have it. But he just makes them, So you could possibly ask a Shaila Rabbi Sai, if this is the case, that there's only a certain amount of money that has been allotted to me when I came to this world, so why am I davening for Parasha? Right? I have what I have. So why am I davening for anything? There's only a certain amount of hana. Why am I davening for it? So one of the terutzim is we're davening to be zocher to find it, because many people have it and they go through their whole life and they don't access it. The Ramban explains, says in Masechtas Rosh Hashanah, some of the other Rishonim also, that it could be you have a certain amount of mezainis that was allotted to you on Rosh Hashanah for the year, but that's only if you were a mispal, and it's only if you took advantage of ishtadlus and you did the normal effort. And the Alshach says it's only if you have a certain amount of akaras hatayv. So there are certain cheshbainis. So where we have, Kadosh Baruch Hu always creates the refuah before the makkah. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu always creates the Yeshua, and we all have it, but sometimes we don't access it. We need a bracha to be able to access it. There is a concept of zacha, you're zacha to a Rosh, may lose his chaylik, and you gain his chaylik. Well, not the Yorechaim talks about that in Parashas Mishpatim. We're not going to get into it. But everyone has, I think they say a story, one of the greatest pearl companies that there are. And how did the guy start on pearls? That Imamish had 11 kids and he was standing on the sea and I don't know if he was standing by the ocean, he was crying, and suddenly he saw this turtle and he followed the turtle for whatever reason. And it seems that turtles have something to do with oysters, and the oyster he found the pearl, and the next day he followed all the turtles, and he started a whole thing where he took his whole family following the turtles, and they found the pearls and he turned into one of the biggest pearl dealers all over. And in many of his big places, I heard in his stores, he has even actually a live turtle pool in front as a karas hatayv to the turtles. I wouldn't give a shur deraisa on this story, but that's what I heard. But Akapanan, the idea is, everyone has it. Everyone has a turtle somewhere. You have to be zeicher to find it. Chavetz Chaim once asked someone, they collect for somebody. He said, we're not going to collect for him. That guy sits and does nothing. He has lead in his veins. So the Chavetz Chaim says the biggest rachmanis on him, that he has lead in his veins. That he has parnos and he doesn't know how to access it. It says people use 2% of their brain. They say Einstein used 5% of his brain, 10% of his brain. That is a lot of brain that we're not using. So we're davening really to find ourselves. That's what we're davening for. Very important. We're not davening for Hashem to create something new. In our tzaras in life, we're davening to find the Yeshua. And that makes the tefillah in a whole different perspective. I can tell you I was never good with math. I get petrified with math. Even now with the makkahs, I wasn't sure the 4, 5, 3. You were adding up. I don't know if I had 10 makkahs there. I get very nervous with math. I freeze up. So I remember when I was learning in Kailo and we were doing Masechtas Erechin at night. And if you know the Gemaras recently, there's a lot of math Gemara. The cheshbainis with the moon and with a nida, with a ziva, and I remember I told my chavrusa, what? Turn the page. Why turn the page? There's no way I could figure this out. Long Rashis with cheshbainis. I can't. I'll say the Ivra. It doesn't work. Okay? I flunked all my math regions. It does not work. Passed one region because I was very good to my teacher and I behaved, But I worked like Keshkes and I managed just barely passed. I said I can't. Then all of a sudden I was doing the daf and I was doing the dafim and I realized the first daf were easy and I turned the next daf to do and I went, oh no. So I told him, you got to give this daf to someone else because I can't. They say you can't do that. You'll lose the whole parak. We're not breaking up the parak. And I want to tell you, I remember I took this Erech in Gemara, the story goes back about 21 years ago, and I locked myself in a room upstairs in one of the rooms in Torah Das, and I barricaded the door, and I schwitzed for 7 hours, and let me tell you, I figured out that Rashi. But I could have sworn to you, there's no way I could figure this out. But all of a sudden, when I was under the gun, there's no other choice. You have to. So we don't use our potential. So that's what we're being mispal for. We're being mispal that Hashem reveals to us what's in us, the koiches that we have. When they say the famous story, they got a teacher who takes over a class, and he goes, wow, the IQ in this class, the guys are geniuses. He prepared, and he came in with such a, and the class did unbelievably well, and the principal said, this class is learning disabled, how did you do this? Because learning disabled, he says, look at these IQ numbers. He says, those are their locker numbers. He goes, yay. Anyway, so as you know, the Federal Reserve controls the money supply. Because if you just keep printing money, money is worthless. The Germans had an idea, you ever read the book Counterfeit Lives, that they were going to counterfeit American dollars and give everyone $1 million, and America will be destroyed. And it's a scary idea. They say, Iran has those ideas, because if we would all be rich, we would all have nothing, right? What would happen if each and every one of us would wake up with $1 million at his doorstep tomorrow morning? We all call in, no more work. Then we go to the grocery, no grocery, right? And then we go to the bar, get the water bottle, no water bottle. I'll come in, if you give me $1 million, another $1 million I'll come in. So in other words, your $1 million will be worth nothing. So the Rebbeinu Hashem controls everything in our life. And the same is true not just for money. The same is true for all of the emotions in our life. The things that we want, the things that we crave. The Rebbeinu Hashem says, I have to control it so that you have a substantive life. And what did we say this morning in Shemon Esrei? Soifekei. No, wrong niggun. I'm dam for Omer. I also not good with Nigunim. Math and Nigunim are not my thing. Soifekei. It's L'chol Tzeraseini. No, that's the Megillah niggun. Okay, whatever it is. What's Soif and what's Vekei? It's L'chol Tzeraseini. Right. Soif Vekei. It's L'chol Tzeraseini. Okay. What's Soif? What's Kates? So Soif is the end of, everyone wants the end of their tzaras. But when does it come the end of the tzaras? When you understand that Kates means oiski cheshbon. There's a set amount. The Rebbeinu Hashem knows exactly how much money you have in your life and how much lack of money. How much menuchas nefesh, and sometimes on the day stop eating lack of menuchas nefesh. How much stability and how much indecision. And the Rebbeinu Hashem says all of that is the formula that gives you life, that gives you a kayach to live. I know you would like everyone to be rich. It's not the way the world works. So Soif, we're Zaycha to the end of our tzaras, and then we understand that the Kates, the Rebbeinu Hashem had it all cheshboned out. And when you cheshbon that out, it's chil v'rosh lefidyan avshein. I've shared with you this many times. I do most of my taping in my attic. In my attic, Baruch Hashem, I have a nice little house. It's very big in many ways, but in size it's a little. And I climb up this ladder that comes in the bedroom closet to get to my attic on top. So when you're downstairs by the dining room table, so essentially, not too much piles up on the table, especially if your wife and daughters are home, everything gets cleaned off. Someone's coming, everything gets cleaned off, everything has to be spick and span and nice and neat, as it usually is. So whenever I put down my notebook, I'm like, where to go? Human vacuum cleaner here. But most of the time, where does it go? It gets sent up to the attic. Now my desk in the attic, here's the problem. Because most people that come into the house don't walk into my bedroom and climb up the ladder onto the attic, so there's no real urgency to clean off my desk, except for Erev Pesach. And even then, I don't know if there's a chiyuv to clean it off, because there's a din, chametz shnafel all over my pilus. If a wall falls on it, I think it's more than 3 tfachim, the caliph can't get to it, you don't have to be biting chametz, or I'm not getting into that. So my desk basically piles up, and one day I'm going to get to it. So every once in a while, what happens, I'm missing a paper that I desperately need, or I'm missing a thing. And I start looking. So I learned I could take the whole thing and just dump it on the floor. That doesn't really help. So at least then I start putting everything away in its proper place. So when I find the paper right away, my desk stays piled up. But if I don't find the paper I need till I get to the bottom, so at least then everything is organized at least for the next couple of hours. So I said a lot of times in our life we're missing something. I don't know where it is. And a bunch of give me the answer. And we don't realize that Kadosh Baruch Hu says if I give you the answer right away, you're not going to organize your life. And the Rebbeinu Hashem gives us the Yeshua only after we think it's an achzarius. Give me the paper, God. Give me the answer. I'm in trouble. The Rebbeinu Hashem says, I'll give it to you when you have to get there. Okay? So there's a certain amount of money, there's a certain amount of hana in this world. I think the statistics are 50% of this country earns between $5,000 and $50,000. 30% of the country earns between $50,000 and $100,000. 12% between $100,000 and $150,000. 4%, anyone here, between $150,000 and $200,000. And 3% from 2 and on. I don't know where the 1% that the Occupy Wall Street guys got. But what does the Welt say? The Welt says, if Rothschild was a Melamed, not only would he have all of his billions and palaces and banks all over the country, he would be even more rich because he would get the Hanukkah money too. You know what I mean? The tips. What did they say? There was this Schachter who he calls up the best bacher in some yeshiva. He says, "I have a shidduch for your son, you and everyone else. Goodbye." No. Talking about Rothschild's daughter. Rothschild's daughter. He says, "All right. How do you have a shaykhus at Rothschild? Trust me." He calls up Rothschild. He says, "How did you call me? Well, how did you get my cell number? Cells weren't even invented yet. How did you get my cell number?" He says, "I have a shidduch for your daughter. You and everyone else." No. The guy's a president of a bank. Really? Okay. And he walks into the local bank. He says, I have a yeshiva guy, no experience whatsoever. I want you to hire him as a president. You offer you a rocker. What do you want? He says, he's Rothschild's son-in-law. So send him in, you know. Put it all together. The Rebbe Shalom puts it all together. You know, smart shot, and he knows how to do this. Okay. The Rebbe Shalom puts together the missing parts of our life and makes it work. So the Gemara tells us about someone that tried to spend all of his money in his lifetime, and he was left with a head of cabbage. And he said, I left it over, I leave it over for others. So of course in life you want a balance between enjoying life and not splurging. And the same is true for life in general. And understanding that, you know, there are two different kinds of people. People that don't have no cheshbon whatsoever, and people that are just petrified. And we have to balance ourselves someplace in the middle. They always say you go to these sales in these stationery stores before the summer starts, and you come home with 6 boxes of spiral notebooks, and like 10,000 pens, and like 8 cases of loose leaf paper. Why? So it was a penny a pen. It was a penny a paper. It was murder. I says, don't do it. So why not? We have so many. You know why? Because the next week I look around the whole house. There's not a pen to be found. There's not a paper to be found. There's not a notebook to be found. Because there's so many. Everyone keeps taking it. There's nothing. It's if you buy one for $1.79, you know where it is. That's how it is. Right? Same is true for life itself. If we understand that there's a cheshbon to life. That's the way it goes. We have a certain amount of days. You know, Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky used to say, when he saw his first white hair, he said, oy, oy, oy. He said, it took 50 years to get the first white hair. He said, he looked into the mirror. The next week, he saw the second one. Took a week later. He said, uh-oh. Then now we have to be careful. Rabbi Yosef Chaim Zonnefeld once said, he said, the doctors told him, you know, at his age, they don't know how much more he has. They said, Rabbi, you're not allowed to be depressed. He said, he's not depressed. It gives him a certain chashivus for every single day. We have a certain amount of bracha in our life, a certain amount of years, a certain amount of menuchas and nefesh, and we're asking Hashem to find it. Find it. And through hakaras hatayv, and through recognition that it comes from the Rebbeinu Shalom reveals more and more of it to us. Okay? The Rambam says, what's the greatest level of tzedakah? You find somebody a job. Why? Why? Well, number one, he feels like a mensch. That's the pashut pshat. But there's a deeper pshat. Because the Rebbeinu Shalom gave everyone a job. And by you putting him back into his job, you're putting the Kadosh Baruch Hu's puzzle back into place. And that's why when there's Geneva, your tefillas aren't answered. Because not just you stole from him. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave everyone a certain amount of money. When you steal something, you're messing up the whole puzzle. It has to be redesigned, restarted. Or you speak Lashon Hara or Machlokes, and people lose their will. Or they lose their shalom bayis. You're destroying what HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave them. That's the biggest merida, klapei shemaya. I was walking down the block, and I noticed a dumpster, right? And it's a big, heavy dumpster. I'm not going to say which company. And it was loaded high. It was loaded high with rocks. I don't know what it was there. And this guy came to pick it up. One guy. I said, they sent one guy to pick up this dumpster that weighs 50 tons. And now he was maneuvering with his truck. And it was parked between 2 cars. I said, he'll never get the truck in there. And he pulled the string this way, attached chains this way. Within 10 minutes, he had that huge thing on his truck, and boom, took off. I said, you know, tell somebody that this person, given the right kalim, could lift a 10-ton thing. The Rebbeinu Shalom gave us the koichais, the chains, the truck, to deal with all of our problems. Sometimes we get angry at Hashem. Why did you give me such problems? Instead of asking Hashem, teach me how to make the connections, because I know I could lift it. So getting back to Avnimas Hagardi, he's a weaver. A weaver has to figure everything clicks in with the other one. So he comes to the builder and says, how did HaKadosh Baruch Hu create the world? And he turns around to him and says, you know, I'm working now. That's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. The Rebbe doesn't want you to sit and philosophize how things work. Get out there and do what you think you're supposed to do. He said, God is not tired from making the world. You know what he's tired from? He's tired from people that are angry at their lives. People that keep giving up. That they don't realize that the Rebbeinu Shalom says, do your best. I'll put things together. I'll help you lift it. Today's the yard of the Rebbe of Zisha. The Rebbe of Zisha teaches the Gemara in Masechtas Chulin, says, the Rabbeinu HaKadosh went to Rav Pinchas ben Yair, was going for Pidyon Shvuim. He said, Rav Pinchas, come eat by me. Rav Pinchas ben Yair said, I don't eat by people so fast. There are those that have plenty of food. Yes, shloi ve'ina roitza. They don't like when people come to them. And there are those that would love for people to come to them, but they don't have. So I don't like eating, but Rabbeinu HaKadosh, but you have. He's rich. And you want. So I would come to you, but I'm busy now. So Tosa says, what? So Pinchas ben Yair said, "But Yisrael kedoshim heim." Everybody, some want but they don't have. Some have but they don't want. The guys that have but they don't want. Why are they called Yisrael kedoshim? Says Tosa. Tosa says, even though they have but they don't want, but it's busha. They're so embarrassed not to do mitzvahs. They do mitzvahs. So the Rebbe Zisha touched like this: you have some people, yes. They have all that it takes to be happy, to do mitzvahs. They don't have the ratzon. You have some people that have all the ratzon in the world. They don't have the mitzias. They don't have the mind to learn. They don't have the money to do chesed, whatever it is. You know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does? If a person really means it, if he really feels, I want to make my life better, the Rebbe Hashem puts the two together. The Rebbe Hashem says, you're doing it with the ratzon, but you don't have the real mamashos of the mitzvah. You're doing the real mamashos, you don't have the neshama of the mitzvah. I put the two of you together. I create Yisrael kedoshim heim. He says, that's touch machshava toiva kadosh baruch hu mitzaref l'maisa. One person has a machshava, I'd really love to daven, I'd really love to be from, the way I should. I can't. And the other person does it, but doesn't have the heart. And both of them have like a guilty conscience. Both of them want it. Because Baruch Hu says, I'm going to put the two together. Your Ratzon and your Maisa. The Rabbi Hashem says, I'll give you the reward for lifting tons and I'll pay you by the ounce. Just believe that you have the koiches to do it. You can do it together. We don't believe. That's our problem. We don't believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu solved our problem even before it started. And that's what he told this builder, told this philosopher. He says, there's nothing that makes HaKadosh Baruch Hu more upset. It's not creating the world. It's not hard. It's the lack of belief that you have the answers to your problems in your heart. You just have to find it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Boil Pari, come to Pari. And I'll tell you a great reason for coming to Pari. Ki ani ichbarati es liboy. Here, come to Pari. I made him into such a rush. It's going to be so much fun. Come to him. That's why I should come to him. Ki ani ichbarati es liboy. It says Boil Pari. Why? It should say Leichel Pari. What's come? When I send you, I say go. When I say come, let's go together, I say come. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you think I'm leaving you alone? In your frightening times, in your challenging times? I'm there with you. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're there with me, then how come it's so bleak? And how come I'm so frightened? And how come I'm so threatened? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ki ani ichbarati es liboy. That threat, that lack of money is also my hashgacha to help you. Don't be frightened. So the Ramban says the whole Yesod of Amunah is in this week's Parasha. Right? So when it comes to the Makav Arba, the locusts, so Pari is having an attack. He says, take away this death. All of a sudden, he never said that before. But Ha'arav, he never said that. I mean, the Ha'arav wasn't so bad. You just had these tremendous lions and tigers that were eating people up on the streets, and they locked themselves up, and there were these tremendous sea monsters that came out, the Medrash says. They had arms that were 20 feet long. They stuck their hands through the window, opened up the lock, came in, and devoured everyone. But Pari, he's okay with that. The Arba, that locust, get him out of here. So the Ber Moshe explains that Pari always insisted, hey, God doesn't give everyone what they need, okay? I do. I'm God. I'm the Nilus. The Nilus irrigates all of Mitzrayim, and I bless the Nilus. We know Pari went every morning to bless the Nilus, and you know what he blessed the Nilus with, right? But that was like his... So Pari always maintained that, but something happened by Makas Arba that made him lose his argument in the position. He looked foolish on the debate. Because Makas Arba literally ate up every last morsel of food. So Pari, what are you mashbiah? There's no one here. It must be that God gives us what we have. And there's a Rabbi Shalom on the world. And to Pari, that was death. God gave me a certain amount. I can't create new. Rather, I have to ask Hashem, reveal within me what you gave me. To Pari, that was Rakas and Mavasaseh. That was Makas Choshech. Makas Choshech was Leiro Ishas Re'eu. No one, the stream didn't see each other. They didn't see that our bracha in life is, if we go out there, we say, Rabbi Shalom, get me through the day. The Rebbe of Zisha, after he said Birchas HaTorah, and after he said Birchas HaShacher, he said, Hashem, you gave me hands, you gave me life, Roika Aretz Alamayim, I can walk, Mater Asurim, he ran out and said, please give me someone to bench, give me someone to help. He was overwhelmed with the sense of bracha to help someone else. Every makkah to the Mitzrayim was a bracha to the Yidden. Makkah's Choshech was, the greatest darkness was, everyone saw themselves in their own light. They didn't see themselves as part of a puzzle connecting with the people around you. And Ulachol b'nei Yisrael ha'yarbim ma'shvaisam, says the Rishon. If you take a diamond, you throw it into mud, you can't appreciate the beauty of the diamond. You put it in its gorgeous setting, it shines. The Yidden understood, all alone I can't do it. But if I take my Matzav HaChayim and I say, this is my wife, this is my husband. If I say these are my talmidim, these are my kids. These are the ones that Kadosh Baruch Hu gave me. This is my business, this is my job, this is my house, and this is your bracha, Hashem, that you gave me. It's if it's been mashvoisim, if you believe that your life is a bracha from Hashem. And the more you have a karas atayv, the more HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals that bracha within you. And it's dafka during the makas hachoshech for the Mitzrayim. When you live in a world where everyone is out, survival of the fittest, the corporate murderous world where you'll kill each other. And you say, no, I'm going to live to help someone else and give someone else a job and make someone else feel good and I'll be a mavater. Then you get to see the treasures of someone else. That's what the Yidden saw during makas choshech, what no one else saw. Heard an amazing story. That there was a just Instagram. Shamshua Fol Hirsch says, Gama Ish Moshe Gadol Ma'oid Be'enim Mitzrayim. All of a sudden, by Makas Choshech, they went Moshe. Wow. What about till now? Dam Tzvadeya Kinim Orov. That's not wow. So Shamshua Fol Hirsch said that he makes monstrous things that blow up the world. Your ratings don't go up so much. What the Mitzrayim were surprised, says Shamshua Fol Hirsch, was, whoa, Makas Choshech. All the Yidden came to borrow things from the Mitzrayim. Right? They came to borrow things. And they said, well, we know you have this, you have that, because by Makas Choshech, we went for a tour of your house, and we know exactly what's going on in your safe and in your house. And they said, who stopped you from taking it? We were there, it was dark. All the security cameras were shut down, darkness. No one could see you, we couldn't move. Why did you just take everything? Why are you asking us permission if we should lend it to you? Because Moshe told us not to take. Because Moshe told us, you take something that's not meant for you, you're only destroying yourself. We're waiting for the bracha that is coming to us. And that's why no one took. No police, no cops, no security cameras, no nothing. They went, Moshe, wow. Wow, does Moshe have a koyach? If he can bring that amunah into Klal Yisrael. So, what's the whole union of borrowing? The Yidden said to the Mitzrayim, life is a loan. Do you understand that? Our body is a lease. We don't live forever. And the lease comes with with certain guarantees, with a car, with a warranty. The Rabbi Hashem gave us the warranty that you have the bracha to make it through life. As difficult as your Nisayan is, this is your Nisayan. Deep within your heart is a Yeshua for your Nisayan. You need the bracha to find it. If you view life as a loan, the whole world is a different world. Very different world. So someone told me the story, I'll conclude with this. Somebody comes to a bar mitzvah in Eretz Yisrael, and the bar mitzvah boy is like really cute, but he's like very little. These little bar mitzvah boys, they sit on a milk crate, and the big hat is like, halfway down on their eyes, and they have to keep picking it up, and a cute little kid. And I'd like to thank my mommy, my grandma, for coming from all the way from San Francisco, and whatever it is, Because he's a kid, you figure he'll grow a little bit. He gets an aliyah, then he has to stand in a milk crate to look at the Sefer Torah. Okay, listen. So someone said, the father said, this kid isn't just stam short. He said, let me tell you the story with this kid. He was a premature baby. And he was born, he weighed only less than 2 pounds. They put him into the neonatal, they started the whole machines, the oxygen tanks and everything, and the incubators. The doctor said, shlachamaisis. And we said, this tefillah, we're going to daven. And the Mabit says, remember that the purpose of tefillah is it forces you to acknowledge my life is in your hands, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's the ultimate purpose of tefillah. More so than whether you get what you need or not, because we don't understand what we need. He says, we're going to go with our tefillah. And their tefillah worked. And the baby got better. But the doctor said he's going to be very, very tiny. Very, very tiny his whole life. And then they heard about a certain doctor somewhere, somehow, that has a procedure that if he does this operation, the kid is bigger. So they went to this doctor. And then they found out that it wasn't really an FDA-approved operation. You have to sign off as experimental. The insurance is not going to cover it. They said, fine. What are parents not going to do for a kid? And then when he said the kid may not make it through the operation. Now they were stuck. Well, really, you could, you can't. They weren't sure. They said the story, the guy came to a doctor and he said, the doctor said, well, I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 people die from this operation. He goes, what? He says, don't worry, the last 9 people died, so your chance is good, right? Okay. So now, they're going, what? We want us to sign off our kid to take this operation? We can't do this. They went so far, they invested so much money. So the father turns to the doctor and says, tell me the truth, if this was your kid, would you do the operation? The doctor thinks for a few minutes and says, I'll be perfectly honest with you, okay? For my kid, I would do the operation. But if I was you, I wouldn't. What does that mean? He says, in my world, if the kid can't play varsity football, he has no social life, and he may as well be dead. But in your Orthodox Jews, you look at the world very differently. You look at what's inside, not what's. He says, if in your society, if my kid was in your society, no, I wouldn't invest in his physical look, because there's a lot more to. You can appreciate the blessing in life that's without that. If she understood that, how much more is it our achrayus to understand? The same is true for any human being in this world. If we are makir that the bracha lies within us, and that's what we're asking for, then we're zaycha to an ar and to a yetzias mitzrayim that we could have never imagined that things could be so good.